What's up once again, folks? This is a double header for me. This is like my second show on Thursday on the very first day of December. This is your boy, Stanley Soul Train Jefferson in the house. Nice to see you all again, for the second time today. We got another great show for you here today. We got Bobby Billman of the Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence. Bobby, why don't you say hi to the people?
Hey, how's it going?
Nice to have you, my man. Nice to have you. This here reminds me of Dare. It reminds me of, Dare. You remember Dare, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, because this here, it reminds me of like drugs and violence that we dealt with when we was growing up in the 90s, and it's still a thing going on now. It's a big, big thing, especially towards kids. Peer pressure is a big, big deal, nowadays. And with a program like yours, L.E.A.D, that's what it's called. That's what the acronym is. It's L.E.A.D. Why don't you start out by telling me, for those that don't know, including myself, because I heard of DARE, but this is the first time I ever heard of Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence.
Yeah. So the L.E.A.D program, they started in 2014. Started off with just a handful of police officers that really wanted to start making a difference, and then they partnered with the Mendez Foundation. And together they've been able to come up with a curriculum that addresses not only the issues of drugs, but they combine in violence and bullying, and they increase the amount of mental health counseling and resources, so that way the schools have something to talk about, and they're really focusing on increasing more of teaching kids how to deal with these problems rather than just telling them what not to do.
Excellent. Now, according to what I have here, I would like to know, how long have you all been doing this at area schools, and what made you want to get involved with L.E.A.D?
So we've been out here doing kind of the awareness, helping these programs get into more schools and providing the funding for the schools that can't provide it for themselves since April. But the L.E.A.D Foundation has been going around to different parts of the country. I know that specifically one of the biggest ones here has been Indian Hills. They've been having this program for a couple of years now and really been focusing on developing it there. But we want to make sure that all these resources are provided for the kids that are in different school districts as well.
And when you do go to visit kids at area schools here in the Cincinnati area, what do you specifically discuss with them in terms of drugs and violence? Because, like I told you, drugs and violence is a very big thing nowadays. You see it on the news all the time about someone getting shot at over violence, or kids, shootings happening at schools, and peer pressure when it comes to drugs and especially alcohol too.
Sure. The biggest thing is the school gets to make a lot of choices in the curriculum. There's 23 different options. They kind of split them into too good for drugs and too good for violence. But when you think about those big issues, you got to scale those things all the way from kindergarten all the way to high school. So they start talking in earlier grades, start talking more about simple things like over-the-counter medications, alcohol, tobacco. That way they can graduate in more street drugs when they cover those in middle school. And high school, they also start to talk more about relationships as well. So when they go in there, the big focus is really providing a multifaceted approach. From what I remember from a different program, it was just kind of a day, kind of got really excited about just say no to drugs, and really just kind of moved on after that. But when it comes down to it, repeat instruction is really what's been found to be important. I started my career as an educator, so I really understand that going into the schools, repeating things over and over again and evolving it and repeating and repeating is really what makes a big difference. And getting more peer groups involved has been really helping out with the cause too.
Why is it so important that you all do this by, going to area schools and telling kids about, drugs and violence, especially with the way things are going nowadays?
Sure. We're not alone in Ohio. We're fourth in the country for kids overdosing before they get a chance to graduate high school. Kentucky, our neighbor, is number 3. So we know that this is a specific area that we need to focus on. But it's not just picking one specific issue. It's really talking to kids about their peer relationships, being able to give more of a logical approach to why kids should abstain from doing drugs rather than just trying to scare them. Because those are the things that kind of stick with them long term, and all of those tools to process emotions and how to interact with their peers. Those were the bigger things that we found to be important, rather than just trying to focus on pure education levels, but really focusing on developing those understandings for the kids too.
And as you see here, there's some pictures you sent over to me that I want to share with our viewers. When you look at these pictures here, I will often ask guests that send me pictures that's been on my show in the past, about when you see these pictures, what does that really tell you? I mean, what does it really not only tell you, but what type of message does it give to the kids when they see these images that I'm showing here right now?
Well, I mean, the images there are really about creating an understanding about what the LEAD program is. Even though they're operating in 41 states, 12 different countries, and they've been around since 2014, backed up by the Department of Education, the What Works Clearinghouse, not enough people know about what they are, and I don't think the program is really as dense as we really need it to be to get the effective results we want for everybody.
All right. So I see here we got a couple adults, people, what are they doing here in this picture here?
So the program has to start off with a combination of school resource officers being educated and trained. They do work with EMTs, first responders, veterans groups as well, but mainly the big instructors are the law enforcement groups. A lot of them are retired, but they partner them with the students in the classroom and with the teachers to maintain kind of the classroom control, because not everybody can manage a classroom of kids, especially when they range so heavily from kindergarten to 12th grade. So this is one of the instructional classes. Depending on whether the instructors have had educational experience before in the past, it's up to a 5-day training program. They get to go walk through all the specifics, walk through all the different curriculum, and they show different groups from around the country really kind of showing their support. It's kind of surprising, but most police departments have less than 10 officers. So kind of spreading this out and creating more programs that work with the school resource officer agencies is really what our focus is now, to create more instructors that are out there. Although there are 3,200 instructors, think about how many different classrooms there are out there.
Oh man. And most of these organizations, they have mascots, they have Darren the Lion. Who's this dog right here? Because I seen on your business card that has this dog on here. Who is he?
That's Leo, right? So that's the mascot. It stands for law enforcement officer. So he goes out there, and that's kind of the representation we have for kind of a mascot. Seems approachable for all kids. Most people love dogs. I'm even allergic to them, but I still think they're pretty darn great.
Oh yeah, canines. They work wonders with law enforcement for sure, especially German Shepherds.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I love dogs too. Trust me, I love dogs. I mean, I want to get one day when I get a house. Trust me. Now, what are some specifics that you teach these kids when you go into these classrooms and talk to them about about these things? Like what's one thing that specifically that you want kids to get out of this when they go to your classroom? I mean, if they're watching this.
I mean, I've always been a big fan of kind of the logic behind why kids should abstain from doing drugs. I mean, the biggest thing is that is a fundamental time where kids are developing the skill sets they need to be able to comprehend and view the world, and to be really good at making good, healthy decisions. So the biggest thing that we focus on is talking about the consequences of not just drugs, but violence, bullying, different substances in general. It can impact their growth and development and really lead to long-term consequences down the line, and that's really what we're trying to avoid. Most addicts do start before they turn 18, but if we can prevent them from getting into that place before they really get a chance to even start their journey and their career, I think that's going to make a big difference for changing the way the future looks.
That's a very good point, because it's better for you all to tell these kids early about drugs, violence, and alcohol, and the major consequences that can come to this. Because nowadays it's forget about going to jail. Jail is one consequence. Then you gotta, the family's gonna suffer, and then death. Jail and death. Those are the top two consequences to me. That kids nowadays are facing, and especially us adults. We probably might need LEAD too. Is this organization not just for kids, but also adults as well?
Well, the adult involvement is mainly involved with helping them in the classrooms. The LEAD program does focus specifically on K through 12. That is what their kind of whole curriculum and focus is on. That's already a big enough piece for them to kind of tackle. there's a lot of adult support groups that go on and a lot of adult like rehab in different places where adults can go. But when it comes down to it, like there's a big gap in the whole K through 12 drug education program when there was a kind of a falling out in the mid 2000s.
Now, there's one picture here that you sent to me that really stood out. I'm going to show that right now. This helicopter here, I know it's from New Jersey. It's a New Jersey State Police and everything. Do you all have something similar to this here in Cincinnati?
We do not. We just started doing a lot of the awareness and being able to provide the funding for some of the other schools. We don't have as strong as a program as they have in New Jersey. That's where everything got started. That's why we're out here to make a change and a difference. I mean, we're out here. I got a team raising awareness at all different places across the city. We go even down into Kentucky as well because we want to make sure that like basically everything within 45 minutes to an hour of around us, they know how to get the program into their schools. We talk to counselors. I talked to a couple of politicians. I've talked to multiple different people just by kind of like working with, retail partners, engaging with people as they're going in and out. Basically an adult Girl Scout out there just trying to let people know about it is. And that's how Stanley and I met. Oh,
yes. We actually met at a Walmart on Colerain Avenue. There's two Walmarts, though, on Colerain, the 10240. That's normally where I go shop. That's why I met you.
Yes, sir.
When I see you all out there, speaking of which, since you brought that up, when parents and kids come up to you and everything and they're interested in the program, from what I've seen, what type of feeling do you get when people are very interested in this? Because not a lot of people don't know about this.
I mean, I find about 60% of people I interact with really support and love everything that we do. There are a percentage of people that have some, I like to think about them as pretty strong emotions about, why these are such big issues in Cincinnati and who they really want to point a finger at. And I'm not here to figure out why it went wrong. I'm here to do something about making it right. So I get really impassioned when I see people, and one of the favorite parts is hearing people's stories with these issues being such a big issue for all Cincinnati, Kentucky. I mean, the United States is struggling with these issues across the board. Everyone knows fentanyl, opium are on the rise. People have stories. People have loved ones that they've lost, family members, people they've cared about, and they take the time out of their day to stop and tell me about why they think this is important. And they share their stories about the loved ones that they're missing, that are lost, or how, a lot of times it's people that have, gotten past high school. And unfortunately, the big regret is often I wish they would have had something like this for me. I wish this could have been there for me. And that's one of the things that I don't ever want to be a regret in what I do. I want to provide for as many schools as we can. I want to constantly be out there raising awareness, doing programs. I have a dual purpose. I mean, I want to spread awareness and make sure the schools that can't afford it for themselves don't have to worry about that.
That's a very good point right there as well, because, I wish we had DARE when we was in school. You was in school too. You heard of DARE, right?
I remember going through the program myself. I remember it pretty vividly. I was living in Texas at the time, and I remember they took the whole school out for the day. We went to some cathedral gymnasium area. They did a presentation. I believe they had some sort of a vehicle, and they got everybody all excited. And the things that I remember are this is your brain on drugs, and really putting the scare tactics and talking about what some of the more legal consequences to getting involved in drugs were going to be. And for me, I was 6 or 7 years old at the time. So the legal consequences didn't make a lot of sense, but staying off drugs, that worked. That was a message that was pretty consistent with everything else at the time. But as we found out over time, those issues weren't enough. The curriculum that they had wasn't enough to be able to make a big enough dent, and it's kind of the reason why we're at.
What's the and for people that don't know, because I'm about to put this in as a graphic, how can people volunteer if they, or kids or parents that wants to know more about this and want them to come to their school, or teachers that wants for you all to come to their school and talk to kids about drugs and violence and all the stuff that they need to know about the consequences and how to avoid peer pressure and all that.
So the website is LEADRUGS.org.
L.E.A.D.
RUGS. So either LEA drugs or leaddrugs.org.
All right, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna put this in for you.
There's a link to go through and sign the school up. The charity will contact them. Just because we sign up a school doesn't mean that we can necessarily have the school do it, but me and my team are out there to make sure that when the school does request the program, the burden of having to pay for it has already been taken care of.
So again, it's LEADRUGS.org.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
All right, people, he has spoken. I mean, there's nothing more, parents can do than sit their kids down and talk about drugs and alcohol and violence, especially drugs and violence, and how it can play a factor. And as parents and as teachers and mentors like Bobby here, we as adults have to set an example for kids nowadays when it comes to drugs and violence. Because when a kid sees their parents, deal with, violence, or they see them do drugs, then that opens up the door for the kid. Okay, it's okay for me to do it. So we as adults need to do better of not doing that and telling kids about what drugs is. I mean, that's why organizations like L.E.A.D is there. They go to the schools to talk to your children about drugs and violence. And if you want to learn more about that, I got the website right here. It's leaddrugs.org. leaddrugs.org. You can find a lot of information. I'm sure you can find video and pictures and all that great stuff, correct?
Of course. Yeah, they have a pretty decent social media presence as well. There's places for, we're working on programs that can get parents more involved in the classrooms as well. Those are still in development. As of right now, I mean, there's volunteers for people that want to help out and become instructors. The training for that is completely covered, and there's more than enough schools out there that could use the help.
And let's see. And people, L.E.A.D can really help your kid, get ready for a brighter future too. If it wasn't for an organization like L.E.A.D, I mean, who would tell, other than parents, who would come out to the schools and tell your kids about, the dangers of drugs and violence and peer pressure? Who would do that? I'm thankful for an organization like L.E.A.D to just jump in there and talk to these kids about it, because and ask questions. I'm pretty sure that's my next question. What are some questions you often get that you and others often get from kids when it comes to drugs and violence, and you all visiting their classrooms?
So I focus a lot on the outreach and the fundraising part of the charity. I'm actually one of the instructors that goes into the school, so I know that a lot of the questions kind of get focused around kids that either don't properly know about drugs and kind of learn it secondhand, or I mean, we know the internet's a treasure trove of information, and whether or not it's good is kind of up to where you're looking, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. Now, do you all have any additional events that's coming up that we need to know about?
So if you go on the L.E.A.D website, they'll go through and have all of our events where we're out there. We're able to answer questions. A lot of the information and the resources are on the website. That's the easiest way to get the information about the programming, the curriculum, how to get the school signed up. When it comes down to wanting to help out and make a difference, our events are listed on there. We do kind of move around the city a lot, so check that list updated every single week, and they'll be able to post on there, be able to provide the places where you can come out and actually meet one of us. And we're out there and we can answer questions and really be able to deep dive into these things and help people if they're struggling to help get the programs into the schools. And as we grow more, we've only been here since April. We've already been able to help out a ton of different schools with the funding that they need. But our job's not done. I mean, it's a slow struggle to work with nonprofits and charities because it's one of those things that it's not like a mandate. So we have to let people know about how to get the programs into schools. We have to raise awareness with the counselors because it's multiple different pieces that have to get involved, and it comes down to people that just hear about it and really feel moved, that are in the right places that can make those difference in the changes. I mean, the resources are there. Um, that's what I've been out here working for.
You're right. The job is never done. Even when the kids turn 18, they're adults. The job is never done. I mean, you gotta keep at it because like it goes from one generation to the next generation to the next generation to the next generation. I mean, you got a daunting task, but I know you all can get it done. You and your people, you all can get it done with L.E.A.D. And my next question is how many schools have you all reached out to, talking to kids here in the area about drugs and violence?
Sure. So there's a couple email lists and blasts that went out early. I know that a lot of schools have interacted with us out at places like Walmart or Ace Hardware, local restaurants and delis as well. So I don't know the exact numbers of the number of schools that have been contacted, but we are making some big moves on increasing the amount of agencies that are there, because one agency will generally provide for a couple different schools and sometimes even a whole school district. And those are kind of the big moves that we want to make. So there's a school resource officer conference coming up this summer. So I'm super excited to be going there and kind of like going out there in person and kind of shaking the hands and getting to know those people too, to make sure the programs get in there and the SRO officers have the training that they need to help out too.
And I'm gonna show one more picture that you sent over to me. This right here, I mean, you see parents, I don't know if they're parents or just regular adults, coming to see what you all have to offer and everything. I mean, what does that really represent when you see, not just kids, but adults themselves come to you all's booths, whether it's at Walmart or, or in other events that's going on here in the area?
Yeah, I mean, that's a picture from some of our trainers that go around and teach the different school resource officers. They go through and they go to the conferences as well. I recognize one of those laminates that why L.E.A.D is the one all the way to the right, so I recognize that one there. Just kind of getting the word out there, although it's been a very prestigious foundation to work with L.E.A.D, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a lot of just getting to know people. That's really what makes the difference. I mean, there's not a lot of big institutions that can make the moves that we need to make right now. So when it comes down to it, I'm going to do what I can to work with the people that can make the difference.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you 100% with that. There's not much, there's not much I can say. L.E.A.D. I mean, lead by example. It's making kids leaders for tomorrow. Like I said, from generation to generation to generation. L.E.A.D, law enforcement against drugs and violence. I mean, the word means what it says, making kids leaders of tomorrow, making them, lead the way for other kids to say, hey, drugs and alcohol and violence, not for me. It's bad. Bad news. Bad news, people. Bad news, kids. Drug free is the way to be. Violence free is the way to be. Alcohol free is the way to be. Stay away from those things. And kids, just say no. Just say no, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's one thing that you all teach. Just say no. I mean, whenever you see somebody, offering you drugs or if you see violence, I mean, it's like the old saying goes. If you see something, then you need to say something. See something, say something. I hear that a lot nowadays. See something, say something. So don't be afraid to go to a teacher, a principal, or a trustworthy adult at your school, or even a counselor, that does lead if it's at your school. Go to them and say, hey, I just saw something that we shouldn't be seeing at our school. I want something done, and then go into specifics on what happened, of course. And just don't be afraid. That's why organizations, once again, like L.E.A.D, is here to teach you all how to perform under these high pressure circumstances. I mean, it's very, very big. And my man, I just want to thank you again, for spreading the word about about this to kids. I mean, if it weren't for you and your organization, I know it's in 41 states. throughout the country, and Cincinnati is just getting started. It's one of the younger, organizations, in the market, around the country. But I mean, with you doing that, just keep at it, my man. Just keep at it. Don't give up. Don't give in. I'm there for you all the way, especially for these kids, because if it weren't for you, who would tell these kids about, drugs and violence and how to avoid them? Peer pressure. Peer pressure is a big thing. I know I keep saying this, but like peer pressure is a very, very big thing. You do teach that, right? About like peer pressure when it comes to drugs, don't you?
For sure. I mean, a lot of different curriculum, a lot of the different education when it comes down to it is, depending on the age group, especially elementary and middle, they don't really look at adults as kind of the end all be all. They look at their peers. I mean, it's such a big different thing. I mean, you can probably remember back in the day when you looked at somebody that was 18 and you were like, you're so old, because it's like there's such a big gap for elementary and middle schoolers to understand. And by the time they get to high schooler, they already think they're full-fledged adults. So it's like, it's a lot about educating them about how to stand up for their peers. I mean, the bullying section really says like, hey, we want to work together. Like, be a buddy, not a bully. Like, we all want to work together at this, and getting peer support groups and getting people to stand up. Because peer pressure, a lot of times we just think about it as the negative way. But there's a lot of positive peer pressure as well, because I notice a lot of kids out there are trying to make a difference. They know the consequences of these things. Unfortunately, they have way too many reminders about the costs of getting into drugs, violence, and even bullying. The issues of multiple different things because of bullying has been on the rise as well. I mean, they unfortunately have multiple different examples, and kids aren't ignorant or dumb to the ideas and the things that are happening around them. But giving them ideas and ways to process them, that's really the way that we move forward.
One more question before I go, before we end the show here. You mentioned about the curriculum. Like, if there's one thing in the curriculum that kids really get out of this experience with law enforcement against drug and violence, what is that and why?
Too good. These kids are way too good to waste their time on drugs and violence. Like, there are so many wonderful possibilities out there for their future and the way to grow. And like, regardless of what everything looks like now or whatever moment that we're in, there is so much potential for the next generation to be able to grow, to be able to explore places outside of our planet, to work on new ideas, to work on different things that we can do to help out the planet and everybody else around us. Like, there's way too much at risk to want to waste it on drugs, alcohol, and violence.
Absolutely, man. All right, y'all. Here's the website once again, leaddrugs.org. You can find a lot of information about events that's going on here in the greater Cincinnati area, about how you as an adult can get involved as a mentor, or if you have a kid that's at a school that doesn't have LEAD, or teachers, if you're listening, please go on the website here and learn more about this and get these people involved with your students at your school, because these kids, they need adults outside of parents and teachers that they can count on to talk about drugs and violence, because it's a big epidemic here. You see it on the news, you see it everywhere. I mean, this is a good time for you to really get involved and get these kids, molded in with the drugs and violence that's going on around them early, before it's too late, especially when they become teenagers. It's better to start now when they're young. Start now. So again, leaddrugs.org. All right. Come here, my man. Here, come here. Come here. I'm going to do something. I always do this. Hold on 1 second. Whoops. On what? Okay, here we go. I got it. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right, scoot over just a little bit. This way. Okay, sorry. This way, one more. Okay, one more. This way. This way. Sorry. No, you good. It's been a pleasure, my man. It's been a pleasure. as I get the music going here, it's been a excellent pleasure of you being on my show to talk about this, because kids need to know these things, man. I mean, law enforcement against drugs and violence, especially getting the cops involved. I mean, I've been to so many events where kids interact with adults and everything. I mean, I'm pretty sure you all do that too, right? Let the kids get involved with the officers in the area, correct?
For sure. I mean, we want them to feel like the law enforcement officers are someone they can go to trust, and there's been a lot of things that have eroded that, and L.E.A.D's out here to make a difference.
All right, my man. Let me turn up the music here. All right, so people, we're out of time, but however, if you want to learn more about my show, you can go on my website here. Hold on one second, let me see. There we go. You can, if you want to be on my show, of course, you can go on my email. You just email me on my personal email at sbj285@yahoo.com. And also, if you want to learn more about my show, you can go on my webpage, about my YouTube page, rather. Sorry, it's been a long day, people. There you go, right there. It's Broadcasting Genius. You can also go on my Facebook page that I have right here. Okay, here we go. Set the record straight with Soul Train. You can find the latest videos, information, and so much more. I mean, this is a good place to talk about great things happening around Cincinnati. And Bobby, my mission statement on my show is good vibes, good times, and it's all about bringing positivity here in the tri-state area. And again, I want to thank you for bringing that energy to me, and especially to the kids out there in regards to drugs and violence. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Stanley. This was awesome.
I better see you back on here again now.
Sounds good. And I talked to Nick, and he said he'd love to come on sometime too.
All right, bring him on, both of you.
Sounds great.
Oh yes, indeed, yes indeed. Well, this is the end of it, folks. Until next time, keep it fresh, Cincinnati.